All right, let's get into it. Today, we are diving deep into the work of philosopher Byung-Chul Han to try and make sense of this deep anxiety so many of us feel in modern life. You know the one? That feeling of constant production, of endless communication, and that nagging sense of just being completely burnt out. This whole explainer is really a map of his argument for why the disappearance of rituals is at the very heart of this crisis we're in. So Han kicks things off by basically diagnosing our current moment, and his diagnosis is pretty stark. He argues that we're living through this profound crisis of community, one that's defined by an overwhelming and honestly an exhausting focus on the self. Does that hit close to home? That feeling of being on a treadmill, Constantly producing, constantly performing, but never really reaching a satisfying finish line? This is the central feeling, the core problem that Han really wants to unpack. And it's a feeling that connects so many of our modern anxieties. Okay, so what's really fascinating here is how all these pieces fit together. Han sees it like this. As our shared values and communities erode, we kind of turn inward, leading to this collective narcissism where the self becomes the ultimate project. And that, in turn, is what fuels burnout, because we voluntarily start exploiting ourselves in the name of self-realization. And the crazy part? All the while, we're talking and texting and posting more than ever, but feeling less and less connected. So if that's the problem, what's the solution that we've somehow lost along the way? For Han, the answer, or at least a huge part of it, lies in understanding the incredibly profound social function of rituals. I mean, just think about that definition for a second. It's so powerful. Rituals aren't just these empty, formal things we do. No, they're what give our lives structure, stability. They're like architecture for time itself, turning this chaotic stream of moments into a place we can actually live in, a place we can call home. They give us a sense of duration and permanence in a world that feels like it's constantly changing. And this right here? This just nails the core trade-off we've made. Rituals create these deep shared experiences, a real sense of community that doesn't need constant chatter to exist. Think of that silent, shared understanding during a ceremony or a moment of silence. What we have today is the complete opposite, an endless flood of information, of communication that creates a lot of connections for sure, but fails to build a true, lasting community. So how did we get here? What exactly pushed these rituals out of the picture? Han points to two relentless, powerful forces that really define our modern world. Let's take a look at the first one. This is pretty much the cycle we're all trapped in. This constant need to produce and innovate means nothing is ever allowed to last, and that makes life feel incredibly unstable. So instead of connecting with durable things that could ground us, we're pushed to consume these fleeting emotions and experiences, which only turns our attention even further inward, just reinforcing that narcissistic focus on our own feelings. And here's the second relentless force, our modern obsession with authenticity. The pressure to be true to yourself basically turns the self into another production line. We are constantly working on ourselves, optimizing ourselves, and this permanent state of self-analysis, Han argues, is exactly what isolates us and hollows out our shared world. Now, this is where it gets really concrete. Let's look at how this all plays out in the real world. The consequences are pretty dramatic, as Han shows how this logic of production has completely transformed core parts of human experience, often cheapening what was once sacred. I mean, just look at warfare. A duel, for all its violence, was a ritual. It had rules, a shared understanding of honor, a sense of reciprocity. You actually faced your opponent. Drone warfare is the absolute opposite of that. It's an act of production, it's asymmetrical, it's remote, it's data-driven, and it completely lacks any sense of a real encounter. The opponent just becomes a target on a screen, not a person. And we see this exact same pattern with how we celebrate. A traditional festival was a form of sacred rest, this intense collective explosion of life that actually built community. Today's events, concerts, pop-ups, they're designed for individual consumption. They're non-committal, they're disposable experiences we attend rather than deep rituals we participate in. The focus just shifts from the we to the me. Han even applies this logic to something as personal as the erotic. Seduction, he says, is a ritualized game. It thrives on mystery, on semblance, on a playful exchange of signs. It has a narrative, a drama to it. Pornography, on the other hand, is pure production. Its goal is total transparency, the immediate display of the naked truth, which strips away all the playfulness, all the anticipation, and all the drama. And finally, this logic has even transformed knowledge itself. Think about myths. Mythical knowledge was narrative. It was presented as this deep, sacred riddle you had to contemplate. But dataism, which is kind of the religion of our time, reduces knowledge to whatever can be counted and calculated. It's additive, not narrative. It gives us tons of information, but it strips away the meaning and the mystery. We get all the answers without ever having to sit with the questions. So when you put it all together, the picture becomes pretty clear. We have systematically traded a world that was rich with symbols, with play, and with ritual, for one that values production and transparency above all else. A world, you could say, without much magic. I mean, just look at this list. This is the great trade-off Han is talking about. In every single one of these, we've opted for what's immediate, what's functional, and what's productive. We've chosen work over play, raw information over a good story, and efficient communication over the slow, sometimes difficult work of building a genuine community. You know, it's the difference between having 500 friends online and having one person you can actually call at 3 a.m. And that really leaves us with this final, incredibly powerful question. Han's work doesn't offer any easy answers, but it forces us to confront the hidden costs of our hyper-productive world. It asks us to seriously consider what we've lost in our relentless pursuit of more, and maybe what it might take to find our way back to a more habitable and maybe even a more enchanting world.